Unhinged stream time, everyone. The name's Adam, and I have been up for at least 24 hours. I kind of lost count, and this book fried my mind.
And I'm ImpCit, and today we will be reviewing Deadlands the South.
Or as I like to call it, a fictive suicide note. Because this book is horrible. It is 130 pages of absolute pablum, and it is the greatest proof that Deadlands was dead, even as early as 1999. I will warn you, I will be very unhinged. I don't mean to be, but oh god, this is the greatest combo of all time. And there's only a few good things about this book that I will appreciate. Hello there, Jimmy, and hello there, Not Nito. This is not going to be your average stream. So,
It will not.
one of the first things that I will give credit to is actually I can't even give credit to the cover of this book. It's 7 out of 10. It's good. Yeah, it's like good. It's just kind of good.
It definitely gets the theme: the invading northern hordes, the southern gentlemen, the debutante, and the thing that none of them will mention is causing this.
Oh boy. And just to let you know, this was made in 1999. There has been controversy on some of the decisions made in Deadlands as of relatively recently, within the last newest edition. But no, the sentiment was a thing since 1999. What's that sentiment? Don't worry, we'll get there. Don't worry, we will get there.
Well, to bring people up to speed on what Deadlands is,
True.
uh, so works as dice pools, exploding dice. You were able to use cards for like character generation or spell casting.
So here's how Deadlands work. It is at least partially based on. I think it's partially based on Savage Lands, at least a little bit. It had the concept of exploding dice. Initiative was done by card drawing. Your stats during character creation could be either done with dice or with cards. I believe the original was dedicated to cards, and I mean playing cards. And the way Magic worked is you basically had to play a poker game with Satan. I am not even kidding. You had to make a deal with Lucifer in a game of Sabak to make sure that you can be able to use your magic to do the Kessel Run. Either way, if you fail, you get dragged into hell.
Yeah, the setting overall is a Weird West game.
Basically, they came up with the gigabrained idea of what if South won Civil War, and then what if
Well, not
magic also happened?
somewhat not exact. So in 1863, a bunch of uh, Native Americans ended up summoning otherworldly spirits called reckoners that want to make things more hellish and more despair, so they gain more power. And because of this, the Civil War doesn't end in not in 1865, and so there's stalemate, and then there's a obviously the West to explore. That's its main setting.
You know, I was originally going to make comments on race before then, but I don't know, there's just something kind of magical about the Ute people who've recently learned about the good nature of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or whatever missionaries were among them, accidentally summoning Satan. There's just something kind of magical about that. It's like Dances with Wolves, in only if you got an Italian to play all the Indians. Which is what they used to do in westerns, by the way. Before pain gets too bad for the book, what's a good Weird West RPG? Probably none of them, to be honest, since in my experience, most of them have enough faults with them that I genuinely just think most of them aren't very good. Aces and Eights has its own problems, in particular how it handles combat's pretty bad. Mainly because it did it in tenths of a second, so you could have the magical experience of being dead because you got shot in the heart in the second tenth of a second, but you're still able to act at least for the next couple of tenths of a second. So what could happen is you win your duel, but you drop dead. So that's not very good. And I just kind of intrinsically hate using cards in tabletop games, mainly because if it's playing cards, I just want to play card games. I don't really want to play. I don't really want to play pen and paper. That's just kind of a weird sort of quirk I have, though.
The only thing I could recommend is Rifts for just the fact that you can play as cactus people.
I would also recommend Rifts mainly because it has the least fucky mechanics out of the lot, personally.
Also, also, I'm pretty sure you can play as spirit Native Americans or cyborgs hunting down psychic dinosaurs.
But will the Native Americans accidentally summon the great Satan to accidentally cause the South to stalemate and take
They could,
Kentucky?
they could, but then they could maybe also punch it to death.
Speaking of trash, legitimately on just page 6, here we go. A few notes. In the Deadlands world, slavery, at least as an organized and accepted practice, is a thing of the past, and racism is not far behind it. In 1877, in the setting book, where in the articles of their own constitution they enshrine slavery, they legitimately and repeatedly use the word slavery. They use the kind version of the N-word in it. There is legitimately an article in said constitution that states you cannot manumit via law slaves into freedom. It was illegal to emancipate slaves via law. It had to be done by people. Oh, but Adam, you say, wouldn't this just mean that every slave owner humanly possible would just do that? Yeah, arguably, especially if you had economic pressures from, say, the United Kingdom or something. But my rebuttal to that is not in the 1860s when the vice president at the time, I forget the name of him, he was a Georgia boy, but he was such an arch pro-slave guy that he would have tried to have probably gotten the state of Georgia to secede from the CSA. Not
There's
under the
also the
current
thing.
administration.
There's also the thing of and racism's far behind. It's not far behind. Remember,
In the country.
in the real world, in the South, they were lynching black people. There was an entire history of an entire culture in the antebellum era justifying the slavery of people of a specific skin color. It's not going away in a decade.
Well, technically, the book tries to justify it by saying it's only like the World War II period where segregation is a thing. But we haven't gotten there yet. This is the writers of this book, this pile of garbage, desperately, feebly, pathetically, horrendously trying to cover their butts because they thought it was a cool idea to have an entire country that is based on human trafficking because that is what the South did.
You
Admittedly, it
can
was only in their borders. They were not allowed to go back to the source, so to speak, mainly because that was banned decades prior. But they were still traffickers. They wanted to keep them, but much like modern fantasy books, they were too. They're basically incapable of having the cojones, the huevos, to actually have that be a thing.
yeah, they clearly did not want to take the time or the effort to do this, to like actually write out the implications of in this setting, how would slavery work? Because if this is a setting where magic exists and you're talking about the South, voodoo, fucking voodoo would exist. There's interesting implications about that. Perhaps like a resistance movement. Um, you could have characters who are veterans, even who are realizing, yeah, I fought for this cause, but I'm realizing, the error of my ways and wanting to fight, for freedom. The heroics of obviously being an abolitionist and going John Brown on a bunch of Confederates. but instead they are deciding, nope, all the bad stuff, all that the Confederacy did, gone now.
It's gone now. We're going to use Robert E. Lee to justify it because history managed to make him seem more kind than he really is. That's not to say he wasn't a jackass. That's not to say he wasn't kind to his own slaves. He even freed them. But if I recall correctly, that was mostly because his actual holdings were taken by the Union and fucking burned down by then. I could be wrong on that. I'm a little bit frazzled in the head case, so I don't
He still
remember if that's correct.
that and in the case between fighting for the Union or fighting for his state that was rebelling because they were keeping people enslaved, he chose the side that kept people enslaved.
He also was completely overrated as a general, mainly because a lot of his best strategies were due to a combination of fighting actually garbage generals, such as McClellan, and also having excellent aides on his side. The moment he lost both Stonewall Jackson and Longstreet was the moment his abilities as a commander started to fall apart. But yeah, basically, these idiots had the desire to have the 19th century Wild West aesthetic, but they kind of felt icky and squeamish about the bad parts, like the railroads made out of the bones of the Chinese people that built them. They felt icky about that, so they didn't want to have that. And a reminder, this was made in the 90s. This is kind of the level of issues that Deadlands kind of always had. I'm only on page 6 and we're still ranting about it. So let's go through this some more with a fine-tooth comb. That's what I call my Bowie knife.
They're saying here that we are doing this not to whitewash some of the horrible things that happen under America, because they don't contribute to a very fun gaming atmosphere. Bullshit.
One of the most
They are horrific
satisfying
things.
things you can do is to go John Brown on a completely unrepentant slave owner. And one of the other more satisfying things you can do is take frightful, disgusting, horrible pieces of trash like the Knights of the White Camellia, the Red Shirts, and the KKK, and basically terror tacticsing them back until they have to essentially run away screaming.
Why can't I shoot at a Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, who is also an actual wizard?
Why can't I trick him to accidentally selling his soul so he gets dragged to hell by Satan? Because that's the thing. Magic is done with card gambling with the adversary. So at any point, if they fail, bye-bye. Welcome to eternal torment.
Like, you're not going into just talking about the horrible tragedy of slavery. This isn't. This isn't. Like, there are RPGs that actually do go into trying to play as a slave and is actually trying to evoke emotion about it. But this is the fact that this would have existed in the setting, and it is a part of the world, and it would function as great material for
It
antagonists.
it is
And they point
critical
this out.
to the setting that you have made up. One
They
of
do
the
point this out that some of the villains in this case from the Knights of the Golden Circle, they're racists.
I mean they all were to a man. That's kind of the point. The Knights of the Golden Circle cooked up an idea to filibuster and invade places like Cuba. Why? So they can get more so they can put the Cubans back under bondage, under their control. They're scum. They're fucking scum. Like here's the thing: if you're gonna take a setting period and base it off of history, even if you basically don't care too much, but you take the aesthetics, you have to kind of factor in the aspects of it. I mean, for Christ's sake, BioShock Infinite, for all of its failures, it managed to remember that with Columbia.
Oh yeah.
It
Oh, I
managed to
remember
remember
that.
that correctly and used it, even if it was somewhat ham-handed at times. Look, if you want to have the beautiful, genteel Southern gentleman, what you could have done, and I would have done this, is I would have had the Confederates go through their own Civil War period and break apart, akin to, say, the United States of Central America. Because the whole point of the
That would
Confederacy was it was supposed to be a confederation, much less bound by the federal central government that basically denied them.
that way then you could perhaps have fun things like a Texas, which I don't think had that many slaves at all. Texas abandons it, and it's now congratulations. It is Texas. It is guys with big guns shooting at other people with big guns.
You think that's something? How about the Mississippi Delta getting independent and it's a new African state essentially?
Oh,
Because there were entire states that were plurality black. Mississippi and South Carolina were two of them.
oh, you could have Florida be retaken by the Spanish.
By the way, here's the most pathetic thing of all. Because the player section is written in a period piece, we have used this term, which I will refer to as Enwa, when referring to people of African descent. So, you're willing to use the antiquated, mildly offensive term Enwa, but you lack the balls to actually have slavery in your setting.
Oh, so I thought racism is not that far behind.
Well, in fairness, for the time period, it was perfectly acceptable. And it wasn't
It what?
considered a slur at all. It was similar to Chinaman.
Yeah. At the same time, though, I feel like that just contrasts.
It
Like you'd feel like if it's going away, they would start using, I don't know, black African American, just something that probably doesn't remind people of a racial slur.
they want the visuals of the setting, but they lack the balls to keep the ugly aspects because you have to. You're basing it on history. By the way, this almost 20-minute long rant. This is just on a couple of paragraphs. Don't worry, it goes downhill from here.
So the main section is this: the Tombstone Epitaph's Guide to the Confederacy, which breaks down various areas of Dixieland.
I like the art, but it feels like it was kind of stapled together from like 2 or 3 different movie posters.
And then finally, it's Marshall's territory, which is about, hey, do you want to set your game in the Confederacy?
I mean, if you got this book, you probably do.
Yeah, that's kind of the point.
Oh, hey, I wanted to show this off. Sorry about jumping the gun a little bit, but you know what I like about this depiction of the Confederacy, even though it's complete fucking nonsense? Why do they have Kentucky?
I think they make a point of,
They make up garbage excuses for why they have Kentucky. None that make sense because they have no understanding of the military capabilities. It's as mentally deficient as them also owning Missouri.
wait,
You see it over there. There's Missouri right
were,
there.
were the Union generals even more incompetent?
I think they just made up excuses, and I don't know why.
Why not just have them take Indiana at this fucking point?
I don't know. Oh, by the
Or
way,
you know what?
another
They
reason
give
you
them Maine. Give them Maine for some reason.
give them Connecticut for no reason. They just have it now. It's the free state of Connecticut. What'd you
Well,
miss,
actually, no.
guy?
It could be.
Rambling insanity.
You actually could make a bit of a funny if you did Rhode Island, because the full name of Rhode Island is something plantation,
I
if I
don't know
remember
about that,
correctly.
but I also wanted to make one more rebuttal
Oh yeah,
no,
it,
let me. I wanted to
all
make
right.
one more rebuttal since we didn't get into the historical context and why you have to keep some of that ugliness. Many of the most notorious bandits and mobsters in the West were former Confederate soldiers too. Jesse James started life as a Confederate soldier. You missed the whole stream. No, you missed 20 minutes of us ranting over maybe 8 paragraphs on page 6 because of how pathetic it is. Sorry about that. I just wanted to get that out there.
But we can go on to next section of to live and die in Dixie.
And come back from the dead in Dixie, because, ghosts.
Yep. So the Confederate peoples includes the aristocracy,
Oh, yeah, we're going to see some really, really pathetic takes on class warfare in this book, too. Just as
numbering
a
less
heads up.
than 10% of the population. Um, in the antebellum Stolf, their affluence stemmed from sprawling plantations and scores of slaves.
Scores. The richest of them had hundreds.
Yeah. Where's their money now? I mean, the only thing that
Hmm.
I could think of is, well, they would now be into what, sharecropping, which was essentially just slavery again.
Maybe they made a deal with the Dark Lord, Lucifer or Beelzebub, to, I don't know, get gold out of hell. Maybe that's where they get their money from now.
And then we have next up is the yeoman. These are small farmers, tradesmen, and families that lead far simpler lives. Great wealth tempts one to sin, and politics at best a necessary evil. These are quiet peoples, simple folk, and,
These are the
apparently,
ones that the aristocracy often sent to die in the war.
yeah.
Usually because they'd either pay to get out of it, or in some cases, lie and just say it was about states' rights when you can look at the fucking Constitution.
And then next up, the Enwa.
Well, we're not talking about how the Cherokee owned slaves. Did you know that the Cherokee joined the Confederacy and they owned slaves?
They did. So uh, now they're trying to make this as like it's from the point of view of like the Confederacy. So this is why we get
This
things
is a
like
PR
like this
official. No,
like
this
this
is a.
phrase.
Okay.
Physical punishment of slaves was not universally practiced, and if sufficiently heinous was even punishable by law.
Technically, you were supposed to treat them decently well. It's just no one gave a shit. Technically.
Oh, here's the other thing is that in that period of time, apparently freedmen that accumulate aristocratic levels were often shunned even if they became slave owners themselves.
Also, here's a cursed fun fact. The guy that was responsible for slavery becoming popularized in the United States colonies, the big legal case that decided that was actually a black man who wanted to keep his slaves.
Yeah.
It's one of the funnier little bits of history.
Luckily, though, the M1 never abandoned their dreams of freedom, and when the day of Jubilee arrived, their hopes for better lives were realized faster than expected. The war had created a labor shortage which the freedmen quickly met. In the decades since their emancipation, Southern Enwa have nearly achieved economic parity with the poor white people.
Wait, so okay, my rebuttal to that is this is just asking for racial violence, like
Yes,
horrible amounts of racial violence.
like that happened throughout the entirety of the Jim Crow era.
I mean, you can just look at the multiple riots that occurred throughout cities during the 1900s to the 1960s, specifically caused by the threat to poor whites seeing black people taking their jobs. This was a big thing in Milwaukee in particular. This was also a big thing in Tulsa when they accidentally struck oil. I'm just
How,
saying that this is. Now I remember. I was going to make a comment that the NWA section is a desperate PR ploy. This would be the equivalent of the marketing director for a company trying to get out of accidentally referencing Mein Kampf during an advertisement in a positive light by using like the visuals of my struggle and not understanding why it's bad, but also desperately saying, "No, I didn't mean it like that."
and again, if this was definitely coming from a Confederate propaganda, yeah, this is what they would do. They say, no, no, they're doing quite well. They live apart from each other, but it's okay.
The problem
You
is they
know.
kind of spoiled the reveal on page 6, so no, this is just desperate backtracking.
Also, gotta love what that next section is called, "Birth of a Nation."
More like afterbirth of a book.
Yeah. The causes of secession. The
Oh
most
boy.
reckless choice ever made by the American people came in 1860 presidential election, as the victorious Republican Party at best alienated and at worst infuriated each of the South's social classes. The Republicans avowed opposition to slavery, threatened the aristocracy's wealth, while their various plans to repatriate slaves to Africa, forcibly and subsidize northern industry with taxes on the yeomen, caused anxiety amongst and the endangered the livelihoods of most Southerners.
So there's a lot of actual reasons. One of them was we want to keep our slaves. But one of the other ones that they like to use to pretend that it wasn't to keep their slaves was specifically because if you actually look at the election of 1860, the Republican Party did not win a single county throughout every state that joined the Confederacy. And I believe in one or two of the border states, they also won jack and shit. That was an actual fear because by this point the North was much more populated than the South, that the elections didn't matter. Even with the gerrymandering of the Three-Fifths Compromise and some of the other things that they tried to do, it didn't matter. Demographics just was so far up north at the time that it caused a panic.
And as a reaction to the fact that the Republicans did not say that they were going to get rid of slavery, the southern states, led by South Carolina, seceded. A peaceful separation was sought, but the Union chose to settle the political dispute with force by literally just moving boats into the southern port of Charleston and then calling for an army because several states were trying to secede. And in response, the glorious Confederacy immediately shot at a government building.
Yep. By the way, this was after stealing all of the armories and inciting the National Guard and infantry units to mutiny. They actually
And
did
that
this multiple times. It's just for Fort Sumter was the first time the Union actually fought back.
and because of this atrocity of mobilizing people and moving boats, the aristocracy declared secession for their
I
constitutional
know you're
rights.
trying to do an antebellum Southern accent, but you're just not nailing it, man.
I'm not fuck.
Not at all.
All right then, back to Midwestern voice. So because they decided to secure their constitutional rights to own and keep people in bondage, and refusing to compromise on owning and keeping people in bondage, they decided to engage in war and conscript soldiers, suspend the writ of habeas corpus, and uh, apparently, though, Alexander Stevens, Georgia Governor Joseph Brown, North Carolina Governor Zeldin Vance, tried to thwart Davis.
Oh yeah, like I mentioned, Alexander Steffens. That's actually one thing I'll give credit to the book. That's supplying the name to the face that I remember. He was one of the arch examples of what I meant by CSA being awful. Ardent, insanely dedicated to keeping slavery, from what I remember. And on top of that, very much a fan of a confederation. Jefferson Davis, by this point during the war, realized that the Confederacy needed to centralize and actually have the states cooperate more often. Also, not Nito's fine with the Southern voice if you want to keep trying it.
I'll try it. Conscription caused another rift in Southern society, one that could easily have proven fatal to the Confederacy, as aristocratic congressmen voted to exempt the owners of 20 or more slaves from conscription, which guaranteed few of their class would involuntarily serve. Many yeoman soldiers deserted and returned home to protect their families and land. I'm getting British now, I realize that. Unwilling to die and leave their loved ones destitute, so the planters could keep their slaves.
So, this is an angle and understanding that was a big thing. at the time, and also nowadays, is that yeah, the yeomen were essentially shanghaied into fighting the war of the rich man. That this was a genuine problem. It also occurred in the North as well. There's a reason St. Patrick's Day is a holiday, mainly because a lot of people tried to foist it off of the fresh off the boat Irishmen
In the South as well?
in the North mostly.
Yeah, in the North there was issues with that. But then there's the peculiar institution.
Also, no, Guy, they did not. They did not clarify that one of the big reasons that the reason Liberia exists is because the solution to all of these black people in the country would be let's just take them back to where they came from, even though they
Even though
don't
that's not
know
where
anything at all about the
even though it's not
continent
where
we're
they
dumping
came
them on.
from.
That's not where they came from. And on top of that, they don't really know how to manage anything since 9 times out of 10 they were chattel slaves.
So on the peculiar institution.
Oh, this is where horseshit begins.
So some Confederate generals raised the issue of freeing and arming the NY. General
Almost none of
Patrick
them actually, no, almost
L-
none of them
yeah,
were willing to.
Cleburne was among the first to advocate such a plan publicly. But influential slaveholding politicians retaliated by ending his career.
Here's just a big reason why this was such a hard fight. The general fear was because this is post Nat Turner's rebellion. This is post at least a couple of slave rebellions. Reminder: Harper's Ferry happened less than 5 years prior to this. So the concept of giving slaves your guns.
I wonder why you would come to the conclusion that they would turn on you. I wonder why.
Especially since the other guy is advocating freeing them.
Yeah.
Because basically, fuck you. Any slaves that are in the CSA at the time of the emancipation were liberated. This meant that the ones on the borders would not have been initially.
So to spot this strife, by God in his infinite wisdom intervened to heal these divisions and restore hopes for victory.
So what you're saying is the Dark Lord Satan intervened. Okay.
Hallelujah! Praise be the Dark Lord and Master. But finally, in 1864, great glory went to Generals Robert E. Lee and Patrick R. Cleburne, revered by Southerners of all classes. It used his acclaim to free slaves in exchange for military service, and finally, many Southerners joined in support.
That
President Davis
is.
endorsed the plan in a congressional address.
So here I've mentioned it before, but if I recall correctly, I don't remember the exact protocol, but it was something like Article 1, Section 9, Subsection 4. It is illegal to make via law the manumission and emancipation of slaves. That is one of the bedrock items in their fucking constitution. Also, the
But
public support. Why would the yeomen want these people to also hijack their opportunities, you know?
because
Again,
they would die for the
there's
glory of the Confederacy.
just a reminder that one of the states that had the highest clan numbers was Indiana. I wonder what Indiana was known for. Manufacturing. I wonder why so many joined them. I wonder if it's because of I wonder if it's the Great Black Migration. This
And
this
then,
is clown
after the
shoes.
St. Albans incident, the British finally recognized the Confederacy, legitimizing a slaveholding state to a country that literally banned slavery throughout its empire.
Oh, also a reminder that by this point, because this is based on an actual incident, I forget the name of it. God.
Well, it says the St. Albans incident.
No, that's not the actual incident. There's a real incident in 1862. I'm forgetting the name of it. I'm just blanking. It's fried. My brain's fried. But essentially, there was at least some desire by the British government to intervene in the Civil War because I believe it was like a freighter incident where the Union basically shot at British ships trying to trade with the Confederates. And the government wanted to join, but here's the fucking problem. The citizens as a whole didn't. If I recall correctly, that's one of the big reasons they did not intervene in 1862. And I'm really hating myself and kicking myself in the shin for forgetting the name. I would recognize it instantly if it was referenced. Also, one more rebuttal. By 1864, I don't care. I don't care if the Cheyenne accidentally summoned Beelzebub over in Wyoming. And I don't care. At this point, the states were cut in half. This is post Vicksburg. This is the Western Front collapsing like a deck of cards. This is Robert E. Lee getting his shit spanked by Grant in
Well, you see, now
November.
they could just send hordes and hordes of formerly enslaved people to die in a meat grinder.
Wouldn't work. Grant basically knows how to calculate how many men he's willing to lose. Also,
Listen, they
here's
adopted the
another
Soviet
example.
strategy.
Here's another example of horseshit. Napoleon by 1864 was kind of damn well aware that he pissed away a lot of good-natured will with the United Kingdom. United Kingdom was not a fan of the Bonapartes. So that's a
Oh,
load of
I wonder
hooey.
why. I wonder why 1815 starts
This
coming up
is
in my brain.
horseshit. The Union had no stomach for fighting the British, French, and Confederates simultaneously. Go fuck
The
yourself.
fuck?
Go fuck yourself, shit book, with your shit history.
We probably would have invaded Canada and just taken it over.
We would have. We actually had plans for that in the event that this happened. Oh, also, by this point, we had a pretty big fucking iron fleet. Essentially, we built a
Iron
shitload
Flag.
of monitors.
Yep.
We had one of
Oh,
the largest
oh,
navies in the world by the end of the Civil War.
oh,
Was it
wait.
dog shit? Yes. Did it
Hold
matter?
on.
No.
Hold on. Here's what the British agreed to for protecting them. Fixing dollar had to be fixed to the British pound at a favorable rate to the south, and all remaining slaves unable or unwilling to volunteer for military service had to be freed.
So they'd have to violate their
On
own
April
constitution.
9th, 1865, slavery became extinct in the Confederacy, literally invalidating the entire reason for this fucking war.
Oh, also on top of that, several states would have seceded, and last I checked, I think April 9th is like a month before Appomattox. They're dead by this point. I don't give a shit what nonsense you're trying to excuse.
Wait,
This is horseshit writing. This
April
is
9th.
garbage. This
That's
is
the day that they surrendered in real life. What the fuck?
there's no reason for this to have worked. This is a load of shit.
Here's the thing. Have the South have used voodoo magic, again stealing from the slaves and taking what they made and profiting off of it, have them use magic to just annihilate the Union. And then the problem is because they just took it, they don't understand what this magic is, it's fucking up the Confederacy and causing it to fracture even more.
That would have made sense. You know what would have also made sense? Have the Native Americans accidentally summon Belzegor the Infinite, like in 1862,
So
and then it trickles over to the South first. There you go.
to continue on, then
Maybe make Jefferson Davis make a deal with Moloch. I don't know.
so, so here's crazy shit. In the 1865 elections, the aristocrats were looking to reinstate slavery.
By the
And
way,
so
1865 elections. Okay. So these stupid motherfuckers actually failed middle school social studies. Good to know. That's fucking incorrect, you idiots. The presidential election for the Confederate States was 1 6-year term. You fucking morons. You absolute buffoons. Now, admittedly, I think this means
Congressional.
the legislative branch, which I think is what they might be referring to.
They said congressional elections.
Okay, that's still stupid.
Yeah. So instead, uh, Cleburne and Captain John Buckner, the first freedman to become a commissioned officer.
A made-up person.
Uh, yep, because no fucking way that would happen.
Oh, he would have.
Decide.
His corpse would have
Yeah,
been found twitching and screaming like before
yeah.
the fucking elections. I'm gonna be honest.
Decided. The Confederate state legislatures decided to extend the franchise rights to the freedmen because Cleburne said that without the freedmen, we would have been surrendered to the Union, and the same thing would have happened.
And race riots and pogroms occur in South Carolina, Mississippi, and several other states that have a large population of African Americans,
So in
causing
the
massive amounts of deaths.
so
A
so
civil war within the Confederacy, because that's not fucking happening. I'm sorry. No.
So the results of this the War of Secession, or whatever they call it, is that slavery's over. The people that you've previously enslaved now have guns,
Yes.
and they now have political rights. You have no economy,
Oh no.
and
Yeah.
and
Oh
a good
yeah.
portion of your men
You're
are dead.
correct. You're correct because it's tied to the pound, and that means that the British are going to exploit them to shit and back.
They fucking lost, and now
Yeah.
they're about to get women. Women are demanding the franchise.
I like how
So
the
what the fuck was the war for?
I like my favorite part about this is these hyper powerful aristocracy people in the span of less than 4 years somehow completely lost influence, despite the fact that the big reason that they had that influence was they could just silver bullet you to death. They had so much money and influence. This is amazingly this is fucking terrible. It's amazing.
Then they go on to talk about the views of Davis, um, as again the war was still being fought. He won the presidency again in 1867.
Not how it works. You were only allowed one fucking term.
I believe there's also some theory that he may have died and been resurrected as like a one of those ghouls that were unleashed by the Sioux.
I like how they got the election cycle years of the Confederate presidents, but they forgot that it was a one-term thing.
He then in 1876, let's see, or in 1870, or where's the next election after 72?
I
Oh, in 73. No, in 73 he still won. And then in
This is stupid.
76 he defeated Robert E. Lee by winning pivotal elections. As a result, but there was charges of fraud. The Whig-controlled House of Representatives began an inquiry into Davis's alleged electoral fraud, and they did draft formal articles of impeachment. Um, so
Why would they use the term Whig? The party was dead by then. I'd have to
I don't,
look at politics. Maybe there was a Whig party in the Confederacy. I don't think they ever.
discontent at failed Confederate offensives. But yeah, so the war's still going on for no fucking reason anymore.
I like the part where Jefferson Davis somehow managed to keep power throughout this entire time. I like the part where after shitting all over the Constitution, which hey, fair enough, not every Constitution survives the crucible, but I'm gonna be blunt. He wouldn't have won in 1867 because what would have happened is, first off, he's not allowed to by the own Constitution. Second off, he didn't have the power, basically because of the other people around him. And third off, if he tried, it would have been a civil war during the Civil War. Every aspect about this is stupid, and every aspect about this is actually on par with some of the stupider things that White Wolf has made.
So Richmond is now the capital of the Confederacy. 1872, Davis invoked a forgotten constitutional provision for a capital zone ruled by the national government. So again, they just changed Richmond to they just created a new DC.
In fairness, the whole
Right across
concept.
from the other DC.
Well, no. In fairness, um, in judicial cases in the Confederacy, it would almost always use United States decisions. Basically, it used the previous decisions by the U.S. in most of its findings. So that's not completely out of the blue. You would think though that he would have probably have made a new city though to represent like the new building, like what Washington did. Because Washington D.C. was, I don't remember if Washington. Basically, the concept was we built our own capital as its own district. So I don't think I'm pretty sure they would not have repurposed Richmond for this. I'm pretty sure this is another historical failure from people who clearly didn't fucking think this through.
Let's see, the Capitol Guard, or the ones controlled, known as the Plug Uglies, because of its heavy-handed treatment of suspects, even those accused of minor offenses. And I somehow do not believe that racism is not involved in this.
I like how you're seeing a little bit of all cops are bastards as early as 1999.
Well, this is supposed to be from a tyrannical Jefferson Davis who's been around since
Oh no, it's
1861.
it's fine. It's fine, especially since during this time period the police can be pretty fucking brutal. Like the time they murdered strikers and used dynamite in air strikes. I mean that was
Yeah,
later on, but still, it's fine. It's just after some of the really stupid decisions they made previously, you gotta keep it. I'm kind of suspicious on everything here.
there is still dueling, although it is technically illegal.
This is them going for. It looks cool without remembering that dueling fell out of favor by this point.
It's the Southern Gentlemen
Oh, the ones that are all completely powerless and basically have already been forced into the shadows? Yeah,
and
okay.
the ones who own slaves.
The ones who
Not,
the ones who are so powerful that they instantly got crushed by one guy saying no.
there's the press, even though
You
there
know,
are
this
sedition
is some
laws.
modern year writing, even though it was written 20 years ago, basically.
The Belle
25 years
Island
ago, actually.
Aerodrome, the Capitol itself, the Executive Mansion, the Hollywood Cemetery, prisons, hospitals. Oh yeah, the Executive Mansion. Let's see. It has served as his hermitage since diphtheria claimed his son 5 years ago. Davis is yet to recover from the death of his son Joe, killed by an accidental fall from the mansion's balcony, and the added grief seemed too much for him. First Lady Vernia Howell Davis and their surviving children returned to their family's Mississippi plantation shortly thereafter, leaving the president to a lonely existence. As one of the few permitted to see him, I can attest to the anguish Jefferson Davis has suffered, for it shows on his countenance as if carved by a sculptor and permeates the mansion. A tangible pale hangs over the presidential mansion, almost like a spirit.
So is this before the ghost plutonium comes into the plot?
The Ghost Plutonium was 63.
Okay, how does that have anything to do with the Confederacy winning?
I don't know.
If it's mostly in the west, that's
But I guess it's also, wait a minute. If the ghosts are supposed to want to cause suffering, why not have Davis say we're bringing back slavery?
hmm hmm. It's almost like earlier editions of Deadlands actually thought that through or something.
This
Yeah,
is the earliest
probably not.
edition of Deadlands.
Oh, oh, oh,
Came out in 96.
oh. I thought maybe this was like a second edition thing. Oh
Oh.
no.
No, the most recent edition has just had something destroy, some like spirit destroy the Confederacy. Let's see, we've got ironworks,
I don't even know
hotels,
what to say about that.
churches. We can move on, though, to the front line states, because now, as we've seen the horrifying depiction of Richmond, we can go to see what the rest of the war has brought to the Confederacy.
Oh, that
From the
reminds me. Do you know what my thoughts on what Richmond looks like in terms of the map?
Like a very
Something
small non-capital
s-
city.
something 8-year-old me would have drawn. It looks like a map a child drew. You were able to bust out these great line arts of characters, but that's the best map you could pull off.
Let's see what's been going on in these states. The Norfolk Gospert's Naval Hospital is important to the Confederacy as it constitutes half of all its shipyards. Oh, they have submersibles.
Oh, by the way, my favorite part is when the Confederates actually used biological warfare.
They
They
what?
they intentionally used biological warfare. It returned to Confederate control in mid-1865 somehow, after soldiers from Petersburg spread the wasting, a disease which starves even well-fed victims to death.
Oh, our heroes, everyone.
I mean, they're supposed to not be, but just
Yeah, they're
pointing
not.
that out.
Yeah, the devil. Then I guess there's journeys into the Devil's Triangle.
So
You know,
here's
the
the thing,
Bermuda
they're trying
Triangle.
to nail a specific style, but it's just failing.
Like I can get they're trying to go for like, oh, there's some hidden horror beneath it. I don't know. Either the language is just not connecting, or it's just something. Something's just
I
off.
think it's because we can smell how inauthentic their efforts in researching history are.
Yeah.
Also, one of the other reasons that I'm being harsh to this piece of shit book is because guess what we read. There's this book we read that covered a very heady and heavy historical topic that involved something that I think is actually worse than slavery, mainly because of the nature of what was done. And it handled that with maturity and grace and well thought out ideas compared to this pile of shit.
Yeah. I
I'd
imagine the
argue that the Gypsy book
imagine the
handled it
Deadlands.
better.
Yeah. Imagine the Deadlands writers doing the show of book.
I mean, it's basically if you had the person who wrote the Gypsies book write it. Although I'd
They'd
say
have the
the
ghost.
Gypsy book slightly was better, since while it's offensively stereotypical, at least they had the balls to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But back.
these guys have less ball. Well, I mean, no shit. White Wolf is insane, but still.
Yeah. Uh. So they bring up the Wyville airships. Apparently, there's been strange cigar-shaped airships, at least 100 feet in length, in the night sky. Yep, aliens. They
Okay,
presume to have been carried up by beams of light and gray-skinned monsters, subjecting them to bizarre tortures.
okay. I mean, you're not even going to use any of the interesting folklore that you can find because there's a lot of weird cryptids that exist in that region of the world. No, seriously, there's
The
some
yeah.
weird ones like the Snallygaster. You ever heard of the Snallygaster?
Yeah.
There's also the Jersey
Although a lot of that's
Devil.
like West Virginia,
There's a lot of them in West Virginia.
which but the South's got their own as well.
They've got a lot of them in the South.
Oh, here, the Bluegrass State. Kentucky was thought lost, but in 1865, two simultaneous Confederate offenses rendered General Sherman unable to counter either effectively,
How?
sending
The entire
sending hi-
problem with the Western Front was it was already cut off by that point.
lasers.
1863.
I'm saying they somehow have lasers.
Even if Cthulhu intervened in 1863, Vicksburg was cut off.
Oh wait, no. It's that one book about the race of South Africans that travel back in time and give them a machine gun.
In fairness, that would actually be more believable than this horse shit.
There's a character by the name of Raider Morgan. There's the ruins of Louisville, which was cremated.
I like how this fucking team of idiots are trying to pretend that the North had horrible logistics. No. The entire point, one of the big reasons the North whooped the South's ass is because of their railroad infrastructure, you fucking morons.
So in 1877, the war's still going on, and
No,
legals
I
had
want to
burned
point
parts
this
of.
out. Oh yeah, when the winter forced the Union Army to establish lengthy supply. No, they had like 5 times the railroad numbers, and on top of that, they had better quartermasters, more of them, and could actually get finished goods. What
But
fucking crack are you smoking?
you see now the Confederates had black people.
So did the fucking North. The Emancipation, like, if I recall, like the North legitimately fronted them in supporting lines earlier. Like even in their bullshit story.
And the British.
I'm
Oh,
fucking. I would need to know German to properly. Oh, I know. I'm gonna these brain deniers, these one-celled organisms, these fucking idiots.
Well, luckily for you know, I know a little bit of German to help you.
Oh, thank God.
oh, hi, Biggie.
Easton Vine, Ifan Volzon, Seacal. Is that right? I think I did some German right.
I mean, this is the book that constantly uses the soft N word, so sure.
Naggers.
Nah, it uses Enwa.
Uses the
Oh
word that's
no.
the Spanish word.
So anyway, I wanted to pop in, and I wanted to make all these wonderful people to say happy birthday to me.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
it
It's
is
Biggie's
his
birthday
born
today.
day.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Thank
born day.
you.
Are you enjoying the book?
No.
Good. Up next is the volunteer state of Tennessee.
I like how Lowville's still ruined, even though it's one of the main fucking cities of the. It's on the goddamn river. What?
It was recently burned, and there's apparently a beast that's cannibalizing people.
If General Sherman was there and burning it all in scorched earth, yeah, the South would have started. This is even more fucking stupid than I previously thought.
But now Tennessee. It has been spared the hard hand of war for over a decade.
Okay.
And but the memories of it still remain. Knoxville has
Okay, so the memories of getting attacked by the North remain, but the memory of putting "will never ban slavery" in the Constitution was forgotten in less than 4 years. What?
yes.
Fucking what? This is worse. This is worse lore building than Sigmata. This might be some of the worst, and I've seen some pretty bad ones.
Burnside died in a rock slide.
Okay, Burnside wasn't very good, so that's fine.
Nashville is the city of sin. It is the Athens of the South. The Yankees overran it in early 1862 because accompanying men and material for labor campaigns
Okay,
were
so they are
prosecuted by the
hinting that they
hundred.
made a deal with the Dark Lord Lucifer. In this case, I guess he sent them Ewoks to crush him with rocks.
Yeah. But rather
Also,
than
I'm sorry,
eradicating,
Braxton Bragg was not a good commander.
Yeah.
What meth are you smoking?
So basically, the former Union Confederate authorities chose to sanction the prostitution and the sin. With Smoky Row having an estimated over 400 ladies of the evening, representing every conceivable class, race, age, and nationality. Oh fuck, that third one. That's not good. That's very not good.
I don't get it.
Any age.
Oh, it's like Shanghai in the 1920s. Oh boy,
Yeah.
I love things that would get you killed in prison.
I don't think that's what they're intending. But if this is a city of sin and vice,
I love sending banditos down to Mexico to abscond with. Well, I'm not going to continue that.
they bring up the hospital. They do bring up the tabernacle built by Ryman's, I believe today where the Ryman Theater is.
I like
Let's
how it's
see.
trying to pull a White Wolf by explaining all of these cities, and it's just ass at explaining what these cities do.
Yeah,
This sucks.
yeah, the Belmont Mansion.
I wonder if this was based on something they may have played.
Let's see, with the Belmont, home to the former Miss Adelicia Acklin, at one time the city's most courted widow. They fled Nashville for New Orleans during the Yankee occupation, and after her husband's passing, she cannily managed to earn a fortune in the cotton trade.
I guess the boll
And
weevil
now
never happened, huh?
she then celebrated with a 2-year European shopping spree. The widow drew constant attention from all the eligible suitors before accepting the proposal of prominent attorney Howell Beazle. A decade later, guests still rave about their 2000 attendee wedding, and the couple has scarcely rested since. Howell trebled his wife's fortune acquiring the Nashville Gaslight Company and other lucrative holdings, while Adelicia adopted a less public profile.
What does this have to do with the price of rice in Guangdong province, China?
About as much.
It's not even interesting information. There's nothing. There's like nothing to
They're
do
giving
with
us
it.
they're giving us hooks, I think, for various adventures, but it doesn't really tell us what's going on. Like they give us the forts, they give us
This isn't a
this
hook. This is
boarding house.
This isn't a hook. This isn't like a hook on a line. This is just yeeting a hook into the water.
Let's see. Now
This
we
would be like throwing your fishing hook in the water and say, "Catch me, fish."
have the Carolinas. We have,
Oh
of
boy.
course, North Carolina, the Tar Heel state. And they talk about the native peoples, including the Croatoan Indians.
The Croatan?
Yeah. And then bring up the history.
Does this book talk about Arizona?
No.
No, that's not a Confederacy state.
Come on, there was a bit of. Well, I guess there wasn't a lot
It
going
wasn't.
on, but
It
they
wasn't.
fucked around.
It was a Union territory.
No, there was raiding. There was raiding occurring in that region at the time.
Let's see. They talk about the lost colony. So
Cool.
the
What does
mystery around
Roanoke
that.
have to do with any of this other than establishing something very basic?
The history of them in the early war period, the latter war period, Raleigh, the present situation.
Look, I get they're trying to explain this, but also
Yeah.
compare that to say the other cities we looked at. This I think has more details put here than the other ones did.
On their history, it just
What the fuck?
also they talk about the coastal region. And apparently, Blackbeard is around now. Yes, the Blackbeard.
Yay!
It's based on the rumor that he was able to swim with his headless corpse for a few laps around the ship. I don't give a shit.
Then there's
What are you
Wilmington.
talking about, Adam? Isn't Confederate pirates awesome?
He wasn't a Confederate pirate. He was just some asshole who got his head chopped off.
Yeah, I know, but there are Confederate pirates in this setting. Aren't you
If I
happy?
want to read something about Blackbeard, I'd read One Piece.
Oh, look at page 38 for the mysterious, nameless thing that's apparently spreading pestilence in Wilmington, looking like something out of a Vivzy Pop cartoon.
Nah, not colorful enough and doesn't drop enough swear words randomly.
You're right.
Also too focused as a concept.
And they talk about the Piedmont, which is another part of North Carolina.
So basically, there's like two big regions in North Carolina. There's the coastal regions, which were always more pro-slavery just because they actually had the farmland. Then you got the Piedmont, which is the hilly areas, and it's very different.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they give us the mountain folk.
I find it
people of the
really
mountain.
fucking weird that North Carolina has more of its history written, and then the cities are just kind of afterthoughts.
Well, apparently they did state above that like the authors of this is from North Carolina, the author of this epitaph guide.
Okay, it just makes it feel really weirdly hyper-focused in one
It
area and
does.
then neglected in the others. And then you
When
compare
you
it to
would
the shit that was written for the other two states we looked at.
when you would think a place like Virginia, a border state to the actual enemy nation, it would somehow have more to do.
Also, where's the fortress works? Where's the fucking defensive lines? Why didn't they talk about those?
Oh, there's also apparently witches and giants in the Appalachians.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of a legend. I'm not even kidding. That's like an actual
Yeah.
legend that you'd find in this region.
Oh, and they do bring up Cherokee lore. Like the fairies of the Cherokee. The moon-eyed people.
Oh yeah, that's a real myth.
They think they might be medieval Welsh warriors who sailed over on the year 1100, or that they are one of the lost tribes of Israel.
Yeah, I mean that's something.
They show there's shalom.
What the fuck is he?
I'm just envisioning
do you
since they show one of them eating the livers of Cherokee children. I'm just envisioning one of them using its finger blade, and it just stares dead-eyed at the screaming parents as it grabs its child's foreskin and just mutters
No,
"Chaim" and crawls out of the window like a spider.
I'm
Baby
imagining
crying.
because like we're in the South and like Hitler declared, didn't he declare like the Apaches honorary Aryan?
He made up
Something
people
like
on
that.
the spot repeatedly. Yes.
Like imagine like those fucking like the fucking like this lost tribe that's here like a fucking like they somehow like intermingle with like the fucking Indians like declared honorary Aryan. So therefore, Hitler declares the lost tribe honorary Aryan.
Yes.
I'm just now envisioning since we're going with the joke, they run into just a bunch of them legitimately being dead. Like they just look dead, and then the moment the sun rises up, they go, all right, back to work, stealing children's livers.
Now they do the same thing we went over for now South Carolina.
Notice that South Carolina is a speed run
Also,
compared
I
to
do
that.
like the example of Charleston. The only building that is important to the city of Charleston, South Carolina, is the Citadel.
Yeah. Here's the thing:
They
the
also had
South did not have a lot of people. Their cities were basically like maybe 10,000 usually. It was only places like Richmond that really had population.
and now it's time for the Deep South. Mississippi, the Magnolia State.
Ah, Mississippi, which also has one of the poorest. It was also one of the poorest states in the Union, and it also
It
had the
also
lowest education level of the Union.
and it has the Knights of the Golden Circle.
I mean, to be fair, there were a lot of white supremacist organizations that existed. There's also the Red Shirts, the KKK, Knights of the Camellia, which was a
Ice
South
Scum.
Carolina organization. Oh, yeah. There's a bunch of
You know,
them.
and
They're all
I'm so,
awful.
yeah. Despite them being knights, though, they all run around in costumes. Motherfucker, you're named knights. Where's your swords? Where's your armor? Moving on from Mississippi. Actually, no, there's still more about Mississippi.
There's quite a
Talking
bit
about the
about
northern part
Mississippi, surprisingly.
and the south. Characters like High John the Conqueror, known as the Black Robin Hood.
Cool.
The Hard Dixie,
So what you're saying is they
Mobile.
took the story of Robin Hood and just translated it over here.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, it's Catcher Freeman. It's only half the stories are true. There can't be a rich planter, haughty cavalry officer, or other too proud white man in the whole of the Confederacy that Conqueror John hasn't gotten the best of somehow.
So what page are you on? Sorry, I'm a bit lost.
54 I was on.
Thank you. I actually jumped ahead because there's the Knights of the Golden Circle section. Sorry about that.
Okay, I don't know if this is a bad word or not. They say that he brings a gang of maroons to whale the tar out of some plantation foreman who's too handy with the whip.
That's
Is he reminded
interesting.
about Jubilee?
If I recall correctly, that's an interesting racial epithet I haven't heard in a long time.
We're all learning something
It's
today.
very slightly racist, but I believe it specifically refers to a type. I believe it specifically refers to like a type of Seminole tribe where they're primarily African, or it's like some Afro-Indian thing, if I remember
Hmm.
right. I'd have to look at it. It also could just be another term for black. I would double check. My memory is a bit hazy, but it is from the same time period as the term high yellow, which, if you're wondering, refers to. Oh, now I remember. I think it has something similar to do with like quadroons and octoroons, which were indications of
Oh, yeah.
mixed race or something like that. I'd have to double
Yeah, they're
check though.
they're apparently in the Alabama section. They're really pressing on the idea of that the Welsh came to this area, saying that there's these bluish gray standing stones that apparently Prince Madog of Wales brought the last of the Druids to America in the 1100s.
That's really fucking lame. I've never been a big fan of Celtibooism, and this is just more of it.
You better watch that little smart mouth of yours, buddy, or else the Druids are gonna place a curse on you.
Yeah,
Oh, that'll be fine. I got Cold
Tus-
Iron to beat them with.
yeah. Tuscaloosa is known as Druid City. Again, they're mentioning Druids in the Lost Tribe of Israel. What the fuck? Did they think that
The,
the Lost Tribe of Israel was in the Deep South?
I
Adam, how can you hate
mean,
this? This has everything. This has pirates. This has Druids. This has Jews. What else more could you want?
you know, the funniest thing about this is if you told me that they were basing this on like Mormon beliefs that one of the lost tribes did make it to the Americas.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere though. Apparently, the Knights of Golden Circle do perform dark arcane rituals.
Okay.
Okay, now we're getting. Um,
At least they have the balls to make the bad guys do awful things.
and they
Nowadays, they
began.
wouldn't.
Yeah, they began in the 1830s. They created castles with initiations, secret degrees, and handshakes like the Masons. They were behind a lot of the developments of the war. President Davis sent a telegram ordering the attack on Fort Sumter. Uh,
Oh,
uh,
cool. Oh,
yeah.
cool. You're
The Knights are
whitewashing the
behind
human
everything.
traffic. You're whitewashing the human traffickers by putting this organization in front. Now that is some lost cause or bullshit right there.
They helped turn both Missouri and Kentucky from Union blue to Confederate gray.
No,
I,
no.
I, they reorganized the upper ranks of the knighthood into a council called the Kuklos Kairosos, or the Kuklos for short.
That's pretty stupid because wait, are they too bitch made to just use the KKK?
I don't. Well, yeah, the new imperial grand master of knighthood and the head of the Kuklos is Albert Pike. That name sounds familiar.
This is so fucking pathetic. So even their villains are, oh my god.
I don't get it. I'm
Okay,
literally.
so the writers, because they're terrified of being called racist in 1999, they were too pussy to actually use the real organization, the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, or any of the equivalent like the Knights of the Camellia. And here's the thing: the Knights of the Golden Circle is a real organization. It was a
Oh,
real
Pike.
organization.
I. Oh, David. I. Oh. Okay.
Actually, no. Yeah, this Albert Pike guy. Yeah, he was a member of the Freemasons and was a member of the Klan.
I love when you're too terrified to use a real organization.
Do you think the problem with this book is the fact that they're using real life when it should probably just be more fantastical with it and just make like all new types of people?
The problem is they're too chicken shit to commit to one or the other. They want the visuals, but they're too chicken shit to keep the ugly aspects of 19th century America.
And you can keep the ugly aspects, but go ham. Actually have the Grand Cyclops, even though that's the second version of the clan, be an actual Cyclops.
Or alternatively, have them be able to summon demons that they call angels. Fuck it. Go hardcore ham on this shit.
Have the you have the Knights of the Golden Circle practicing
have a dark
rituals.
Have a dark ritual that's called the Ritual of Ham, where it doesn't matter if you've been emancipated. It's a psychic binding, where it's like a fate worse than normal slavery. It's ultra soul slavery.
Oh no.
You could have done that. You could have gone hardcore evil with these guys.
Yeah, they've gone hardcore evil in this case. Apparently, the Knights, they've got rubber plantations down in Brazil.
Okay.
Slavery's still there, and they've bought Haiti. They bought nearly every port, official, and provincial governor that matters in the Caribbean.
This is delusional crap.
That's also the thing. You want to go ham, but you don't want to go too, like, they're just complete out of proportion villains.
I think my problem with them is that, because keep in mind that they also, I know they're not shooting for realism, but because you're basing it on a real time period and these are real people, I'm factoring in realistic aspects. The changes to the timeline should not have really occurred until, at least at all in any degree, since the Satan summoning happens in 1863. That doesn't stop the fact that the Confederates got their shit whipped by that point and were on the back foot. It doesn't stop that they got cut in half.
Oh no! In the Crossroads section, they mentioned that black people were sharecropping, which meant yes, slavery ended and then immediately started back up under a different name.
Cool. So you got rid of the slavery and added the rights thing specifically just to cover your ass. Got it. This is so cynical. This is, at least with fake activism, they at least pretend to care. This is just, please give us money. We're not evil, fellow kids.
This is just, they're stuck in the crossroads of not wanting to address the issue and having to address the issue.
And they're also stuck between, okay, so you're using real historical figures and you're using a real system, real everything, and or just saying fuck it and pull a BioShock Infinite. Like, you could have gone radical. You could have just said, well, you see, the ritual occurred in, I don't know, 1861, and due to magic becoming a thing, guess what the South was able to do because of its more backwards traditions? They were able to use their connection to Masonic lodges and secret societies among the plantation owners to basically create evil wizard colleges. Or just wizard colleges. It doesn't matter. Have magic actually be a thing during the war, and they don't do enough of that. Or alternatively, if you just want the visuals, make your own fucking setting. Don't actually use like this weird stupid alt history shit. Because you're gonna have to explain to me how the fuck they were able to regain lands and make a treaty signed at the same time period as Appomattox would have happened.
So I'm speeding a bit through from Atlanta, and I stumbled across
dog shit.
John Wilkes Booth was able to kill Black Abe, and somehow survived his fiery death and escaped incognito to Atlanta. He was starting up his old Knights of the White Camilla, and is looking for bold men to follow his path and assassinate President Grant and other Yankee politicos.
So they have an undead Jefferson Davis who's violating the Constitution. I have to keep pointing out that the Confederate president can only have one term, because that's a, it's really weird what they're choosing to go with because, well, actually, no, it's even weirder because they chose to have Grant win rather than Rutherford Hayes. So in this history, I guess Grant got 3 terms,
Yes, I believe so.
or
Which could have happened.
in fairness, they probably explain this garbage because there's a Northern Companion book, which I bet is just as fucking disastrous. By the way, Knights of
Let's
the
see.
White Camellia is a real white supremacist organization. They mostly went the way of the dodo, I believe, in the 1890s.
Let's see. Then in Florida, they say that there should be 2 states.
This is the most insulting thing. So one of my
North.
problems
Oh
with
wait, no.
this is they do enough
Wait.
research to actually have like little nods to things that actually are real in the cities, but then they half-ass it at the same time. So it's like the bare fucking. It's kind of like modern entertainment. This is like modern entertainment, but before modern entertainment was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're talking here about like northern Florida. They're saying it's a pure distillation of everything good about the Confederacy. Sleepy towns, spicy seafood, grilled beefsteaks, independent farmers. South Florida is like the section of hell that Lucifer saves for people who divide Florida wrong.
I mean, in fairness, I would not enjoy being in southern Florida either.
Apparently, it looks like they're Skaven in St. Augustine.
I like the giant spider that looks like it's about to ambush the rat.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, giant spiders as well.
I think
There's the
also,
St.
yeah,
Augustine
I think my
sea
problem
monster.
is, okay, I think I finally figured out my problem. They decide to have the magic thing happen just a few years in the middle of the Civil War. Wouldn't it have been more interesting if this was like after Tecumseh's rebellion got destroyed in 1812? Or if it
Hmm.
happened during like the 1840s and the effects weren't really noticed at first until some oddities in the 50s. Strangeness began to happen in the 50s for everyone, like in the aftermath of the 1840s revolutions. But it comes into strong
Ooh.
effect in the 1860s because by that point the ritual that occurred in the 1840s allowed the first generation of magic users that can get connected to the outside to be mature.
Oh no, you know what you could do? You have some of the Mexican American war veterans have experienced some of this magic, and they're now practitioners. So Stonewall Jackson can literally put up a shield of stone.
Oh no, it's not a shield of
I
stone. He just basically becomes rock because he becomes the rock upon which God has blessed the South to weather the storm.
my my idea for a fantastical U.S. I did a little bit of writing for this. What happens is the idea I have is like the Confederates have a whole cabal of wizards, and they're like, okay, we're gonna summon a fuck ton of meteors to hit Union cities. We're gonna cause deep impact on these motherfuckers. It's the what's that meteor that hit like in nowhere Russia the and it
Tunguska.
destroyed the fuck out of that forest.
Oh,
Yeah,
that.
like that. And but what happens is, okay, so they do the ritual, but like, where the fuck's the meteor? And so then the war goes on, and then we get to Sherman's march. And then what happens is the meteor finally fucking comes because it was taking because it works it had to travel in real fucking time to get there, and it destroys the majority of Union cities, destroying their industry, and Sherman doesn't have any means of resupply, so then he gets drawn and fucking quartered, and now everything's all fucked up on both sides.
That's interesting, but I raise you one more scenario to make this even more fucking cursed. They don't realize the damage that the meteor impacts do, which means that there's a global winter, and the South is now isolated from the rest of the world, which is angry at them for causing the near death of humanity. Oh, and also because of this, yeah, Europe falls apart into a thunderdome. Maybe have an early Russian Revolution where it's become an anarchist nightmare, where like the
Oh.
Narodniks come into play. The Taiping Rebellion rules the nightmare Chinese
Fuck.
celestial empire of God. Like you could do a real fun, fucked up 1870 setting with that as a premise.
But back to this shithole.
Yeah, that's
Apparent-
interesting. Let's get back to garbage. Let's get back to the things that if I did it to a person, like a living being, I'd be put on war crimes for.
So
Let's
it
get
turns
back
out
to
in
the
Ta-
excoriation.
It turns out that in Tallahassee lives George Washington's grandniece. She was hoping to marry Napoleon's nephew, Prince Achille Murat.
I don't give a
Uh,
shit for you. I don't give a shit for your weird Southern Belle fucking noble crap.
Oh wait, she tried and then I guess she died. Or no, she became a widow. She was going to become the Queen of Sicily.
I don't give a shit for your weird weird obsession with
Uh,
noble ladies marrying into power. Go fuck yourself and write a shitty romance book.
Well, that's what
Pensacola.
I'm thinking here. I mean, what's the point?
I don't
It's
know.
trying to reference crap like Pride and Prejudice.
Also that she lives in a cottage and talks to her cats.
Oh, the
So maybe
audience
she's
for
a
this book.
witch.
But
Yeah.
wouldn't it be cool if, like, the secret is, yeah, she's a noble, but she's also a werewolf?
Yes. Yes, that would be fun. Now, apparently Pensacola is the heart of the Southern Aerial Command. The newly founded Confederate Flying Corps has established a secret aerodrome somewhere in the region.
Oh yeah, they have flying machines now. Why fuck you?
It's like blimps and other, I guess,
Oh, don't get me wrong. Concepts and designs for
steampunk
things like
aspects.
aerostats and aeroplanes were a thing in the 1860s, and let's be fair, not blimps, but early attempts at blimps as well as hot air balloons were quite popular. It's just this is a setting with magic, so where did the super science come from?
Let's see. I don't know. Cape Canaveral has a great gun that they are
I'm
using
going
for
to
some
brainlessly
reason.
copy Jules Verne without understanding any of the principles and concepts of that man. I am an uncreative pile of flesh, worthy only of slaughter.
Also,
Hey,
the
look, everyone, it's
Seminole are
SpaceX.
still around.
I don't have words. I'm just staring at this atrocity of a book.
Oh, come on, it's not that bad, Adam. You're just being dramatic.
Oh no, the
And
first few pages are pretty fucking terrible.
And with that, as we finish up with the Everglades, that is all that there is onto the Confederacy proper.
I kind of like how they just gave up. Fuck it, good enough.
Also, note, where the fuck is Texas?
Fuck it, who cares?
Did they blow it up?
Maybe the
I don't know.
meteors blew it up.
Then they give us some various stats or new edges that they have, such as being able to do the rebel yell.
I love that David Bowie song.
Hindrances such as being honorable. Honorable male characters place women on a church pedestal and rush to their aid. The honorable female must yield their authority of their husbands and fathers, must be good hostesses, homemakers, and mothers.
I get it.
Well-
You read shitty books like Pride and Prejudice, and you constantly boggle and goggle at the newest fucking fake nouveau I can become a princess shit.
So
Get the fuck out of here with that crap!
So wait, we're okay fine discussing the gender politics of the South, but the race we're not. No, we're not talking about that.
Of course not. See, here's the thing. The writers have this fetish for a Pride and Prejudice. You know those 19th century fucking penny dreadfuls? Where it's like the OG version of soap operas, but more shit? It's that crap. It's that crap that they like. That's fine. It's fine because I like it. And it's something that is a part of the setting.
They give us some various characters a blockade runner, a discharged veteran, the war widow, and then finally the Marshal's Handbook about role-playing the rebels. The Posse territory is written from decidedly pro-Southern viewpoints, but that wasn't done merely to infuriate readers north of the Mason-Dixon line. It's to give the Marshal an idea of how Confederates view themselves, their culture, and their history. In real life, we're not advocating any particular point of view, but Southern characters in your game should at least to some extent. If they're role-played differently than Yankee-born, Western-born, or Indian-born characters, they are more consistent with the material in this book, and they're more fun to play.
I feel like this is more covering their ass.
They bring up the concept of the Southern Gothic.
Our book that we wrote isn't shit. It was intentionally shit.
Oh, here we go. Race and gender in the New South.
Oh.
Except for isolated examples such as the Knights of the Golden Circle, who may I remind listeners, have control of Haiti, connections with Brazil, control most of the ports in the Caribbean.
Dominate the Coronels, by the way, of northern
Yeah.
Brazil, because the rubber plantations are owned by essentially a cabal of very wealthy military and nobles, actually, because this is the Empire of Brazil at the time.
Yeah.
Most ports in the Caribbean, they probably dominate and choke the trade of Cuba. And, we're single-handedly responsible for winning the fucking war somehow.
They're isolated, like a minor presence.
The bad guys must both be super intimidating and evil, but because we're inflexible little baby brains who sob at the most minimum of evil, we also have to make them very defeatable.
Like, it's not fringes of society. They're major power players.
They literally run the fucking government in some respects. What meth are you smoking?
So, but beside that, racism has become a thing of the past in America. A thing that even now we still have. Obviously not legally, but the racial attitudes and racial beliefs still fucking exist. But somehow, no, 15 or 17 years after the Civil War, no, it's fine.
Now we managed to somehow get to the 1950s desegregation period.
Yeah. It says, the Confederacy resembles the United States during World War II. Some progress is made towards equality, and more will come after peace returns and people resume their normal lives. Further integration of Confederate society is yet to become a concern, but when it does, blacks and whites will approach it with a greater sense of community and shared values than in actual history. They're just going to be singing hallelujah.
It's going to be the fucking Confederacy led by Uncle Ruckus himself.
By the way, reminder that they doubled down on this Weasley little pathetic attempt to duck out of it because they just thought the setting looked cool but didn't want to deal with it. What did happen to all of those Chinese railroad workers, by the way? Did you ever address that?
I just assume we put them in a blender.
No, we used their bones to build the railroad tracks.
They talk about how women are starting to break out of the Southern Belle mold, but obviously we're going to talk about that. There's issues with that. There's the oppression, the Southern virtues, and all that sort of stuff. Bottom line is, if you're portraying all or even most Southerners as racist, sexist rednecks, or as minstrel show cast-offs, you're robbing your posse of the enjoyment of interacting with truly well-rounded characters. If you save the truly bigoted characterizations for abominations and fearmongers, your posse will derive more enjoyment from defeating them.
No fucking shit. Now explain to me now, with great detail and understanding, why you had the first and second feminist revolution occur in the goddamn 1860s.
Progressive. Also, they do point out here that Jefferson Davis is actually a doppelganger created by the Reckoners. He's continued to make the war as bloody as possible. And in fact, murdered its own family.
how lame. That actually, I think, is even worse, now that you think about it.
Now
This
you could have
is...
done something fun of the Confederacy in its losses embraced fucking necromancy.
Or, what you could have done is you could have written this in, like, the 1880s and not have an immortal doppelganger of a president who's in a system that legitimately has a 1 6-year term. You could have done a lot of things. The Deadland writers are just convinced that everyone playing a character from the South is obsessed with lynching minorities and shout racist stuff at the table. No, they're just really uncomfortable with the ugly aspects of the thing they think looks really cool. And unlike a better writer, they're too bitch made to actually do anything with it. They didn't even commit to undead Jefferson Davis. They had to make him a clone made by Satan. They couldn't even do that.
And so they give an idea of a Union spy of Elizabeth Van Loo. Um, they give us the Exsanguinator.
Arsenic and old lace. The exsanguine. Oh, there he is. They were worried that the CSA existing was keeping black people from playing the game. That is the most mentally challenged thing I have ever heard in my life. And I have read Extreme Meat Punks forever. Okay, I'm being very cruel to the writers. This is the sleep deprivation talking. This is still in the running for some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. Because think about it from my point of view. Okay. Actually, no, we could let Biggie imagine it, because Biggie's, Biggie knows. Would having to deal with slavery be a problem if say you had to play like a former slave? Or would it encourage you to go full fucking Nat Turner on these scum?
Well, they mentioned Haiti. I mean, I would imagine it'd be like, what happened to the Haitian slave revolution and all the fun that entailed.
If anything, I think I'd feel more empowered to actually be able to murder the Knights of the Golden Circle.
As a proud black man, I will say though, I would love to be the one to enslave the others and get a nice plantation farming bananas. That sounds fun.
Are you gonna become? Was it Walt
You
Whitman?
see,
Try to
I
take
had an
over
idea. Yeah,
Nicaragua?
I had an idea for a character for a slave master. He has a dungeon too. His name's Van. He's from Japan. Because he's the dungeon master.
Moving on, they bring up the Confederate submersibles.
Yeah, that was the thing. They were kind of a dumpster fire and didn't really work.
They are equipped with auxiliary air tanks, a 6-pound deck gun, a high-capacity bilge pumps, 4 torpedo tubes, an airfloat, and aqua ears.
Mm-hmm.
There's apparently a portal to other heavenly bodies in the Devil's Triangle. Also, those airships in Whiteville, apparently, no, those are actual of earthly origin. Dr. E.H. Benjamin was once a dentist and part-time tinkerer. He heard the siren song of the Manitou, and he left Maine for Salt Lake City. He became obsessed with perfecting an air carriage vehicle, and he resulted in, I guess, creating this. He tested improvement to his design, shrouded in an elaborate sham calculated to make eyewitnesses reticent to recount their incredible experiences. By probing them.
You could have come up with better ideas than that.
Well, no, actually it says they don masks to appear grayskin, bald monsters. Yeah, and yep, no, they then probe them.
This is just a weird sex thing. What? No.
Yeah, that this is some weird rich guy who is now stalking the people of the South and performing weird experiments on them for a sick fetish.
Oh no, I was envisioning like him trying to get like his unit to go all alien mode. It's like, all right, now start talking that made up language we made. Start terrorizing them. Yeah, just like that. Now you get the probe. Can't believe Buck Breaking is in this. Yeah, this is one of those books.
Oh, here's an interesting one titled Pimpin' Ain't Easy. The Reckoners created once mythical succubi to spread terror among the Cyprian patrons. So, looks like in Nashville, you can murder succubi.
I mean, in fairness, you could also do that in Vampire, but you know.
And Howell Beasley is leading Nashville's Knights of the Golden Circle. Albert Pike, leader of the Knights, was pleased with Beasley's efforts until a thwarted assassination of General Cleburne.
These sound interesting, but this is not.
Yeah, we still don't know what happened to the Lost Colony at Roanoke. Blackbeard is actually out there, and he has returned to wreak havoc on local shipping and to recover his head.
I like the part where the Lost Colony, basically the colonists decided to join the Hatteras tribes and then have now gone full native to the point where they've legitimately gone into their own racial war.
Looks like some of the mountains in Appalachia may have become sentient.
So here's my next question. Why on earth are we seeing what look to be Blackfoot teepees in areas that did not use teepees at all?
Well, they're Indian.
Hmm.
They're
Also,
all the same, aren't they?
also Blackbeard's ghost. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, oh, that guy Hyde John the Conqueror, the Black Robin Hood, aspect of Anansi the trickster spider. Because of course
Neat.
he is.
Neat. I'm not sure. Actually, no, I'm pretty sure that by this point the concept of ananasi is not really something known among the slaves in this time period, you fucking morons. That's more of a Brer Fox thing. At least use actual African American culture before you decide to steal from Africa, you fucking idiots.
Let's see, the Knights of the Golden Circle. Here we Albert Pike is a bona fide black magician. So yeah, Albert Pike is a fucking wizard.
Of course he
They
is.
worked with the Masons in the Union and Baron LaCroix in New Orleans as they struggled
By
to
the way,
dominate the
Baron
South and restore
LaCroix
Old
is one
Town.
of the lowest spirits, just to let you know.
Yeah. Their power, wealth, and influence give the Knights eyes and ears from Richmond to Cape Canaveral.
But they're only very isolated and don't really have control over anything.
Yeah, Selma's under complete control of the Knights of the Golden Circle.
But it's also not really under control because otherwise we'd make black people feel bad and not be able to play our game.
The locals live in fear. Posses involved in any anti-Golden Circle activities have to be careful who they confide in. Although most inhabitants have no love for the Knights and they will inform on anyone acting against them to avoid being implicated themselves.
There's John
Oh,
Wilkes
here we go.
Booth.
Yep, John Wilkes Booth. He's always looking for true sons of the South to send on some suicidal mission or for the Reckoners. Anyone expressing the appropriate sympathies may refer to the White Camilla meeting.
So they made John Wilkes Booth the leader of essentially, I don't know how to describe it, the Hand from Daredevil?
Yeah.
Who's like, oh
The
god, who
Foot
would be a
from the
good
Teenage
candidate
Mutant
to
Ninja
become Daredevil
Turtles?
in this fucked up world?
If I was gonna make Daredevil in this screwed up world, I'd make it Robert Lincoln.
Also, it looks like in St. Augustine, it is the Skaven versus the giant spiders.
Rats of unusual size. That's based on a movie that I think is way funnier than it actually is. Wah, wah. I'm
Oh,
joking a little bit,
there's
but it's
apparently
just
a
kind of like,
Mayan
okay.
there's a Mayan city in Naples, Florida.
Of course there is, even though the Mayans never got that far. You know what's actually really stupid? I would actually believe there would be Mayan ruins in Texas more than I would in Florida. Mainly because, have you ever heard of the Huastec?
No, I've never heard of that.
They're related to the Mayans, at least on a linguistic level, from what I recall. They're like in
Well,
northern Mexico on the border of Texas.
it could also be references to the mound culture, which, yeah, in the Mississippi section, we didn't have anything about the mound culture.
Why would we talk about Cahokia? Cahokia doesn't matter.
It looks like in the Everglades, the sawgrass is actually deadly. It'll kill you.
Neat. It sounds like something they heard and said, why not just make it lethal?
Then we've got the various abominations of the Confederacy created by the Reckoners.
This
You got
book, its
your
companion
ghosts,
book,
giants in
Deadlands
the
in
earth.
general.
Oh, you got slave wardens. Manifestations of, I guess, the evils of slavery. Then we've got the
Don't
succubi.
worry, they manumitted all their slaves, ignoring their constitution.
Witches. And we've got apparently an example campaign of the Deadlands Dispatch. Oh no, this is just an update on what's going on in the meta plot because it had a fucking meta plot.
It has a meta plot, and I'm just gonna be honest, I don't give a shit.
I do not either.
This does not mean anything to me.
Now, I could be retarded, or it could be another setting, but wasn't there a in the modern day, was there not like a Deadlands and like whoever owns it the fuck now? It's like, no, you can't play as the Confederacy, going in like
Yes.
the opposite direction.
Well, they blew up the Confederacy.
Oh yeah, they nuked it on purpose, specifically because they were terrified that the concept of the Confederacy would scare black people from ever playing their game. And they assumed
Wait,
that
black people play tabletop?
they also made the assumption that if you played a southern character, you're going to play them as super ultra racist hickman.
What
Which
if
is
I play him as Uncle Ruckus?
which I think is really funny given that I think their take is more insulting than if you just played them that way. Mainly because I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Hello, I'm getting feedback from one of you.
Hello?
We all good?
There we
Hello?
go.
All right. Well, I do think with that we've learned a lot today, which is they when you're doing a setting that is very much tied to historical topics, you do have to bring them up. Like the uh, Chronicles of Darkness uh, bit we did about the Beast of Primordial. Yes, we did not like how they addressed it, but I will say this: they at least addressed it.
Yeah.
I found out Mage has a whole book on pirates. That sounds fun.
It's a lot more fun than what we just read. So, what I learned is that if you are going to work on something, you have to, at the very least, treat it authentically in the sense that you have to, at the very least, be willing to cover all sides. This is something that I always tend to repeat as a lesson because we saw it in Coyote and Crow where they couldn't be bothered to show all aspects of the native cultures that they made up. They didn't show any of the negative qualities because of their weird, fuck it, their weird racial supremacist bent. We didn't really. We saw an excellent example of this in a book that I'm going to release the part 1 of for a holiday. There's an excellent book called Charnel Houses of Europe that handles it excellently. Most of the Dark Era books cover it very well. Booklets cover it well. This one's fucking pathetic. They didn't do anything with they barely did anything with the material. It was mostly little historical facts, which, hey, that's nice. It's not really detailed like any of the City by Night books that White Wolf did. The takes on Southern culture were awkward. The understanding of Confederate society was not very well handled. And just, let's be blunt, them not trying to deal with the slavery issue that would have occurred if they were independent. Are you actually shitting me?
I've heard like some alt histories go down and claim that they would have eventually done it, but it would have taken a long fucking time.
They might have. They might have done, like, there could have been some small attempts over time. They knew the institution was going away.
Well, also
The whole
societal pressure.
Yeah, the whole reason that they had the war is because they wanted to keep it, and they were afraid that the election of the Republicans was going to destroy it.
And their finances, because a lot of the richest people in the South made their money on plantations. So what would have likely happened, since I can actually kind of predict this, since the concept of a victorious confederacy has been thought about quite a bit, what would likely have happened is they would have probably have been forced to release their slaves probably by the late 1870s due to 2 reasons. The first being the pressure from the rest of the world market. The United Kingdom in particular would probably refuse to buy cotton from them in favor of Egypt, which also sold cotton, which would destroy their tariffs and trades. But there was also a little thing that happened, although it might not have happened in this timeline, called the boll weevil blight, which ruined one of the chief crops of the South. There was also the key agricultural collapse because cotton is a very intensive crop. It's a very intensive crop on your soil health. And because of what they were doing, they were depleting the nutrients, so that would have happened.
You know what they could have done too? That would have been neat. I mean, they said they already took over Haiti. Could you just say, like, in an attempt to to pacify the black man and forgive them for their enslavement, they conquered a place and they called it Liberia, making it a colony of Africa, and that's where all the black people went.
I mean, if the Knight of the Golden Circle did that, that would have been interesting. Other aspects that I'd predict in a Confederate scenario like this, at least one civil war would have broken out by this point. I'm pretty certain about that because of, or at least the equivalent of like a nullification crisis where they threaten secession. That likely would have happened. On top of that, something they didn't really do? Like, they kind of talk a little bit about social tensions, but you know what they never really mentioned that was really important during this time period? It's really weird since I usually shit on it when it gets brought up because of the advocates. Where the hell's the communism and the socialism in the 1870s?
Well, you see, that existed only in the North.
No, it didn't. Where's your labor
Karl Marx.
unions? Where's your agricultural
Karl Marx.
movements?
See, Karl Marx is actually a Satanist, actually. And in this setting, communism is created by infernal Satanists, and the proud South people are God-fearing, and they don't believe in Satanism, all right? It's because their superior culture allowed them to reject communist Satanism.
By the way, I'm pretty sure that all of us rate this garbage. I can't really rate it worse than that because, in fairness, we kind of sped run through this book.
I give it a I give it a 5 out of 5. The South will rise again.
I mean, on a numerical scale, I'd have to rate it probably the best I could rate it's a 4 just because of how it tried to handle slavery. In that it tried to avoid it as hard as it could.
I don't. This book didn't make me angry. Is what the thing is. Unfortunately, it may have made you angry, but I just kind of see it as boring.
It is mostly boring. The problem I have with it is mostly on its historical world building. And once we got into like its handling of cities, it's more of a, oh, they sped run this city. Oh, they don't have anything for this city. Oh, they have this one thing for this city. Even the
And then they
historical details about the different states was variable. North Carolina had the most because one of the writers was from there. Like Alabama had fuck all basically. Just as an example, it had cities, yeah, but like they didn't go into details about the Alabama details. Ugh. Thank you guys for dealing with our nightmare of a stream. Yeah, feel free to swing by our Discord, which is in the description. If you're insane enough to get a copy of Deadlands, because this was probably the best advertisement for Deadlands that ever happened. Feel free to get it there at Pinnacle Games. I can assure you that next stream will be more coherent. I will not be operating at 36 hours awake or something like that. I don't know how long I've been up. Thank you for listening for a little under 2 hours as we shit on a book mainly because its very principle near the beginning was a shit show and flawed.
the South will rise again.
See ya, everyone.
Yep.